Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something that's really got NBA fans talking. What's going on with Dallas Mavericks GM Nico Harrison after that huge Luka Doncic trade to the Lakers?
Yeah, it's a big one. Lots of layers here.
Exactly. And if you're trying to get a quick, solid grasp on these complex sports stories, well, that's what we do. We dig in.
And the core question really is, was Nico Harrison actually the main person behind trading Luka? Or is it, more complicated than that?
That's the key. We've got a source here, an article from Clutch Points, that pulls in some thoughts from Gilbert, the former player.
Right, and his take suggests the simple story might not be the whole story. So let's get into it.
Okay, so context first. As the Clutch Points piece lays out, Luka just came back to Dallas wearing a Lakers jersey.
And he absolutely lit them up.
Oh yeah, 45 points, 8 boards, 6 assists, 4 steals. Just a monster game.
Which, really throws the whole situation to sharp relief, doesn't it?
It does. You've got the Lakers at 49-31, looking like contenders.
Yeah, title ambitions.
While the Mavs are, well, kind of limping towards the play-in at 38-42. Big difference.
And that difference, plus Luka doing that, it's led to some pretty immediate fallout, right?
For sure. The article mentions Fire Nico champs starting out.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And, people are openly questioning his job security, understandably, given the team's record after trading away their superstar.
The timing couldn't be worse for Harrison, really. That contrast is just brutal.
Right. And the sort of accepted story, the one that took hold fast, is that this whole Doncic for Anthony Davis swap, that was Nico Harrison's baby.
His brainchild, as they say.
Exactly. The article frames it like he clandestinely conceived and carried out the deal. Like he was the sole architect, this former Nike guy turned GM, pulling off this massive move on his own.
But that's where Gilbert comes in and throws a wrench in the works.
Big time.
According to Clutch Points, Arenas was on his podcast, Gil's Arena, and he basically said, nah, I don't buy that. He doesn't think Harrison was the driving force.
Not at all. His quote in the article is pretty direct. He says, the fact that Nico still has his job lets you know that the trade didn't have nothing to do with Nico.
Interesting logic. Go on.
He's just the one to get punished for it. Obviously, he's just the middleman here. Everybody who needed to know knew.
So Arenas' theory is what? That Harrison is basically the fall guy.
That's the implication. That he's taking the public heat for a decision that was actually made, or at least heavily influenced, by people above him in the organization.
Which makes you think, right, trading a player like Luka Doncic, that's a franchise-altering decision. Generational talent.
Monumental.
So Arenas is suggesting maybe ownership or someone else high up really push for this, and Nico is just the face of it now, facing the backlash.
It definitely makes you pause and consider ownership's role.
Which normally you'd expect them to be involved in something this big.
Right. The article points that out. You assume ownership signs off on or even initiates moves that reshape the entire future of the team. It's logical.
But then there's a twist, or at least a complicating factor the article brings up.
The new ownership.
Exactly. The Adelson and Beaumont families. They're relatively new to running an NBA team. Their background is casinos, resorts.
Not basketball ops.
Right. So it's possible, maybe even likely, especially early on, that they deferred quite a bit to Nico Harrison, leaned on his basketball knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense. If you're new to the league, you trust your experienced GM.
Plausible. But then there's the money.
Always follow the money.
Well, the article highlights that Luka was up for that Supermax extension this summer. We're talking, what, $345 million?
$345 million. That's a number ownership definitely notices, no matter how new they are.
Absolutely. You don't commit that kind of cash without deep involvement from the very top. It kind of forces their hand, makes them weigh the long-term financial picture.
So even if they deferred on some basketball stuff, a decision tied to that much money probably had major input from them.
You'd have to think so. It makes you wonder if the potential cost of keeping Luka long-term played a bigger role in the trade discussions than maybe is apparent on the surface. Was the financial commitment maybe a driving factor pushing them towards a trade?
It adds another layer to Arenas' middleman theory, doesn't it? Maybe Harrison executed the trade, but the reasons behind it involved factors, like the finances, driven by ownership.
It's certainly possible. It paints a picture where Harrison might have been tasked with finding the best deal possible, given a broader organizational directive, perhaps influenced by those financial concerns.
Okay, so wrapping your head around all these angles,
Yeah.
where does that leave Nico Harrison now?
Well, the Clutch Points article sort of concludes that Arenas' suspicion, the idea he's a scapegoat, that might just remain a suspicion, hard to prove definitively.
So confirmation might never come out officially?
Probably not. And the implication is pretty clear. Regardless of who really made the final call or what all the factors were, Harrison is the one in the GM chair.
He's the public face.
Exactly. So he's likely going to wear the consequences of this trade, fair or not. The blame, publicly at least, lands on him.
Which means his future with the Mavs seems uncertain, to say the least.
Definitely uncertain. The pressure is immense, especially with the team underperforming and Luka thriving elsewhere. It highlights just how tough that GM job is. You get the credit, but you absolutely get the blame.
The article also mentions the author, Alex House from Clutch Points, covers NFL, NBA, MLB, focuses a bit on New York sports. Good to know who's reporting.
Yeah, context is always good.
So, if we boil it all down, the core tension is this public narrative Harrison drove the trade versus Arenas' theory Harrison's the fall guy.
Precisely. One paints him as the architect, the other as more of a pawn, or at least not the king in this particular chess game.
And the article basically leaves us, and you, the listener,
Yeah.
hanging a bit, saying the full, unvarnished truth. We might never know it for sure.
Yeah, it leaves you weighing the perspectives, trying to figure out what seems most likely given everything we know about how NDA front offices work.
Which leads perfectly into a final thought for everyone listening.
Okay.
Think about it. Trading a superstar like Luka Doncic, the stakes are absolutely massive. How often do you think a GM, any GM, truly acts completely alone on something like that?
Good question. Probably not often.
Right. So what kind of things, maybe it's money, like we discussed, maybe it's direct orders from ownership, maybe it's just managing public perception. What factors might lead to someone, even a high-profile GM, becoming the designated fall guy in pro sports?
It really makes you consider the power dynamics, doesn't it? All the different pressures inside those front offices. It's rarely just one person calling all the shots on something that big. Lots to chew on there.